All right, let's get straight to it. We're doing a strategic analysis of the fundamental changes remaking the Middle East. The focus of this explainer is engineering the new Middle Eastern order.
So here's the bottom line. A systemic redistribution of power is actively re-engineering the entire region. And make no mistake, this isn't just a series of random events. It's a structural overhaul with a very clear underlying logic. We're going to break down the mechanics of this transformation.
Here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the structural power shift itself. Second, the new actors who are now calling the shots. Third, the process they're using to neutralize regional fragmentation. Fourth, the massive economic pivot from a conflict-based economy to a capital-based one. And finally, the endgame, what it takes to forge this new regional order.
Okay, let's kick things off with the primary catalyst for this whole process, a structural power shift. We're talking about a move away from decades of external management and toward internal regional consolidation. You know, for decades, the region's dynamics were heavily shaped by external powers, especially the United States. Well, that era of dominance is ending. What we're witnessing is a gradual, deliberate pullback of direct external control. Now, this isn't an abandonment, but more of a calculated handover. And naturally, this creates a power vacuum. But, and this is the key, it's a vacuum that is not being left to chance. It's being systematically filled by a new configuration of coordinated regional actors who are stepping up to take primary responsibility for their own security and stability.
So, this power shift is being driven by a whole new set of players. Let's move on and identify these new architects of power.
To really get what's new, we have to first understand the old system. The old order was managed by dominant external powers. Its economic engine was the military-industrial complex, the MIC, which literally extracted capital through perpetual conflict. In that model, instability wasn't a bug, it was a feature, with actors like Israel often functioning as agents of that instability. Okay, so now the new architects are emerging. They are first, the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC, as the political anchor. Second, Transnational Private Capital, or TPC, as the financial underwriter. And third, the Financial Industrial Complex, or FIC, as the new economic engine.
So the GCC's expanded role here is absolutely crucial. This political and economic alliance is no longer a junior partner to outside powers. It's moving into the primary leadership position, taking direct ownership of the regional security architecture and diplomatic coordination. Next is transnational private capital. Just think of these as massive, non-state capital structures, mostly Western-based. Historically, their profits in the region were tied to the conflict model of the MIC. But now, TPC is completely recalibrating its strategy. It's shifting its vast resources away from war profiteering and toward a new economic model built on stability and development.
And this brings us to the new engine, the Financial Industrial Complex. This is a specific branch of TPC, but its focus isn't on military hardware, it's on tangible development, large-scale infrastructure, renewable energy projects, and digital connectivity. The FIC is the vehicle that TPC is using to underwrite the transition to what you might call a peace economy.
Now that we've identified the new architects, let's turn to the mechanism they're using to impose this new order. This involves neutralizing the primary source of instability in the region, all that fragmentation caused by dozens of non-state actors. So the big operational question is, how is this new order actually being imposed on the ground? Well, the answer lies in a systematic process of reconfiguring the region's many proxy forces. You can see the evidence of this deliberate and systematic sorting of these actors. This is not chaos, it is consolidation. In Turkey, the PKK's influence is being contained. In Lebanon, Hezbollah's top leadership has been strategically decapitated. The Assad government in Syria has been replaced by a GCC-backed entity. The political leadership of the Houthis has been liquidated, neutralizing them as an autonomous threat. And as part of a broader understanding, evidenced by more than 24 high-level meetings between Iran and the GCC, Iran is relinquishing direct control over its proxies. Finally, Hamas is slated to be dismantled, its components forged into a formal state structure. The pattern is clear and consistent across the region.
This entire process can be summarized with a single clinical statement. Proxies who align with the emerging regional vision are being absorbed into state structures, while those who don't are being eliminated. It's a binary choice, imposed by the new regional order, and it's all designed to reduce fragmentation and consolidate state power. Now, this consolidation of power is not an end in itself. It serves a much larger purpose, enabling the fundamental economic logic that's driving this entire realignment, the pivot from conflict to capital. And here you can see the two models in direct contrast. The old conflict economy, it relied on extracting wealth through war, which required perpetual instability, and it was all driven by the military-industrial complex. The new peace economy functions on the exact opposite principle. It generates wealth through infrastructure investment and regional integration. This model requires stability, and it's driven by the financial-industrial complex. The fundamental incentive structure of the region is being inverted.
So, what does this peace economy actually look like in practice? Well, it's built on very concrete pillars: massive investment in renewable energy, the construction of widespread digital infrastructure, the establishment of new regional trade corridors and logistics networks. The projected outcome of all this activity is a period of unprecedented economic growth, one completely detached from the old cycles of war and based instead on development.
This brings us to our final section, the endgame of this process, and the one final variable that must be resolved for this new order to be fully realized.
The ultimate strategic objective is the formation of what can be called a soft middle empire. This describes a vast, integrated economic sphere of influence, one that could potentially stretch all the way from Pakistan to North Africa. It's an order governed not by military occupation or direct political force, but by the undeniable pull of economic gravity, trade, and shared capital interests.
But for this vision to be fully implemented, one final variable in the regional equation has to be addressed. So what is it? It's the actor whose historical function is fundamentally incompatible with the logic of this new system.
This really visualizes the core calculus. For the new order, regional instability is no longer an asset, it's a liability. A system built on long-term infrastructure investment simply cannot tolerate the perpetual conflict that fueled the old model. An actor whose primary strategic value was as an agent of instability becomes, in this new calculus, a systemic risk.
So, from the perspective of transnational private capital, Israel is now presented with two distinct options. The first is to integrate into the new economic order as a normal state, abandoning its role as a regional destabilizer. The second option, should it fail to adapt, is to be reclassified from a strategic asset to a toxic asset, a liability that's interfering with profit. In that scenario, it would face a hostile takeover, not through military means, but through the immense financial and political pressure of TPC and the GCC.
The strategic assessment is therefore clear. The old game of using war for profit in the Middle East is reaching its conclusion. The financial interests that once sustained it are now powering its dismantlement in favor of a more lucrative, long-term model of stability and development.
We'll conclude with a final question that this analysis presents. Does this transformation in the Middle East signal a broader shift in how global power is projected and maintained? Is the next phase of history one defined less by military force and more by the inescapable pull of economic gravity?